Good morning. Thank you for joining us today on our first week of the legislative session for CEP Live on Facebook. I'm Dorothy Barnett, Director of the Climate and Energy Project. CEP Live is our weekly series of Facebook Live events that we hope will really better connect you to what's happening in the activities of the Kansas Legislature. So normally every Tuesday at 2, we will host live interviews with organizations whose missions include one of the wealth topic areas. As a reminder, wealth is water, energy, air, land, transportation, and health. We hope that you will, watching us, like us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all at CEP Heartland. Our website, as you can see, climateandenergy.org. So I'm really excited to be here today with my good friend and colleague, Jessica Lucas. We're here at the Watkins Public Strategies office in Topeka. Jessica is working with us through the Clean Energy Business Council, so welcome.
Thank you.
Each week, leading advocacy organizations will provide policy updates on current activities, current wealth activities that are happening at the State House. They'll provide tips for civic engagement and ways for you all to be able to engage with your legislators, including which questions to ask, as well as answer all of your pressing questions. A reminder that we are live this morning, so if you have questions, please feel free to type those in the chat box and we'll get those answered throughout the morning. Also, a reminder, we're really excited to announce that we'll be having this year's Wealth Day on March 12th. To RSVP for that online, you can go to http://bit.ly/2019 Wealth Day. So again, welcome, Jessica. Could you tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing and just introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Jessica Lucas. I am in my third year of representing the Clean Energy Business Council in the Kansas Legislature. I am a multi-issue government affairs person, so work in the Capitol on a variety of topics, and energy has been near and dear to my heart. We worked really hard last session. In fact, that was my first time to be on a CEP Facebook Live event. Glad to be back today. We started last year a conversation around energy planning and where we're going in Kansas as emerging technologies come on board, and we look at how are we going to make sure consumers have access to the energy that they need for their homes and businesses, and how can we do that in a way that's affordable, that gives opportunities for renewables, which are not only important to individual consumers, but increasingly a demand of Fortune 500 companies and businesses wanting to do work in the state. And that has opened up a wide variety of topics on this issue, and certainly highlighted that over the last decade, Kansas has seen electricity rates skyrocket. That's probably not news to any of you watching. You're familiar with the amount that you're paying on the bill, and some of you probably have tried to find other solutions to control your cost. And we're at a point now where there's not many tools available to us without legislative activity and support from the legislature for planning and making changes that will help us better adapt to the changing energy landscape.
Thanks, Jessica, for letting us know kind of where we're headed for the rest of our discussion today. I want to remind the audience that you can post questions in the comments. Assistant Director Rachel Mislivy is monitoring today and keeping us all on track. So feel free to write your questions and we'll get them answered throughout. So Jessica, as you think about our wealth priorities, water, energy, air, land, transportation, and health, give us a little bit of a preview from the Clean Energy Business Council and the Climate and Energy Project's perspective on, what will be the priorities this legislative session.
Really, think without question, energy is a major priority. Through the Clean Energy Business Council, we are aligned with other folks, all of us wanting to make sure we are doing what we can to best understand Kansas's energy landscape, and again, planning for the future and finding solutions to rates and improving access for consumers and businesses to emerging technologies like solar. So there's no doubt that energy will be part of the dialogue. What we've seen in the Kansas legislature, though, is this kind of siloed approach. So when we think about wealth, water has been certainly an important conversation. Governor Brownback had a 50-year water plan. We have a transportation task force that just spent their time in between last session and this session looking at the transportation infrastructure and what we need to do there. So you have all of these things happening, but not all together. And so I think what we are continuing to push and talk about is that importance of a holistic plan, and wealth encompasses that because it is all of those parts and pieces, and they all work together. So it's important that our elected policymakers and governor are not just looking at things through those insular, this is our water issue, this is our transportation, but that we're doing that together. And I think that's part of the dialogue that we're pushing and hoping to emphasize the need for future planning and making sure that Kansans can long enjoy the clean air, the clean water, and the beautiful land that we live on.
It's interesting, you think about the health piece of health, and we know that one of Governor Kelly's key priorities is Medicaid expansion. We know we're going to see and hear a lot of that, and as an organization with a focus on climate and health, we certainly support that moving forward. I wonder, though, how we can engage policymakers and the governor, in addition to the health, more of the wealth priorities. What could we do that might help her see energy and wealth as an important issue to elevate?
Well, I do think these issues are all were talked about with Governor Kelly on the campaign trail. It's certainly not things that her and her team are not aware of. That being said, it's fantastic to be able to represent the Clean Energy Business Council at the Capitol, and it's a job that I enjoy and take seriously and work really hard at. But I am not you. And what's so important for people to understand is that yes, you have voices in the Capitol, but we never ever can translate your collective voices. So when you think about what can you do, it's so important to be involved and engaged in the process. And when you go to forums with your policymakers in your community, or you go to an event that the Governor Kelly or Lieutenant Governor Rogers are at, that you talk about these issues and let them know they're important. If we say nothing, then they don't know. And trust me, everyone has, when they have that opportunity, there's a lot of people pushing to get their message in front of them, who are talking to legislators about their priorities. Don't not use your voice, because then you're not heard, and you have this other competition that's out there talking about things that matter to them. So make sure you engage. Don't set out the process and then wonder why nothing is happening. We will work really hard for you. We are every day, but we have to have you engaged in the process as well, and your voice matters. It's important, and it strengthens our efforts. It makes us more successful when we're supported by all of you, having this dialogue with legislators about how important these issues are. We're fighting a huge battle around solar and making sure you have the ability to access solar on your home. And for those of you who are watching who are solar customers who may be impacted by the punitive rate approved by the KCC to charge a demand charge on your bill, now is not the time for silence. Now is the time to speak out, and we hope you'll connect with us and work with us as we continue to push legislation that would get us to a place where solar customers are treated fairly in the system, the same as other ratepayers.
That's a really, really great point. So one of the things that really is risen to the top on our priorities is an energy plan. Where are we headed? What are the solutions? that can perhaps mitigate some of the rising cost that consumers have seen. You know, utility scale wind has really been a great investment for Kansas, and we've supported that for the more than decade that we've been doing this work. What are the other tools that need to be available to communities, whether it's energy efficiency or renewable energy? An energy plan really should help us get to that place where we're looking at all those things holistically. The other pieces that we've been talking about, the Solar Fairness Act that we hope to be talking about a little bit later in the session, really doing, as you said, helping people who want solar or people who have solar be protected, and for our Clean Energy Business Council members who engage with the solar industry to be able to grow. We've been talking about the Solar Jobs Act. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what we think that might look like?
Well, we certainly recognize that if we think back 10 years ago, Kansas didn't have any wind to speak of. But our policymakers made an investment in wind. They said this is something that we want to see. We know we have the resource in Kansas, and we want to make sure that we have mechanisms for wind. And so over a decade, we've seen tremendous growth in winds. We have, I think, more than 40 wind farms now in Kansas. It's provided opportunities across the state for our young people. Cloud County has a wonderful training program for students who want to get into the wind industry, and it's just been this fantastic success story. So where we were 10 years ago with wind is where we are today with solar. So the Solar Jobs Act is really designed to help make sure that, again, government gets out of the way of business and lets these business owners do what they do. Certainly our members who are doing solar installations, they know what they're doing, but when government comes in and there's regulatory impacts like the demand charge, then that shuts down the opportunity for this business to grow. So the Solar Jobs Act would ensure that we don't put barriers up to allow for business to grow, that consumers have access to distributed generation, and with our programs, Cloud County has the wind, they're also now doing solar, and what we want to make sure through the Solar Jobs Act is that for those students that are studying and learning how to do the work on solar systems, that we're not sending them across the border to Missouri or other states where this industry is being allowed to thrive. So that's where we're headed, and you know, we just basically want companies to have the freedom to do what they do, and you to have the choice to put solar on your home without any punitive charges, and to reap those benefits that we believe will be derived from increased solar in the marketplace.
One of the other things that we've been talking with legislators about is really, along with that, a solar bill of rights. Surprisingly, or maybe not for some, there are communities where you can't put solar on your rooftop, despite the punitive charges. If we get that fixed, there's still an issue of homeowners associations or even some communities themselves making it difficult for a consumer to put solar on their roof. And so one of the things that we think are going to be really key is a solar bill of rights that will create some stability for homeowners who want to make investments, or communities who want to really grow their solar opportunities. The other piece that really, from a wealth perspective, we're really focused on is the Climate and Health Declaration. And so on March 12th, we'll be rolling out the Climate and Health Declaration, really something encouraging legislators, policymakers, and others to take action on climate change. I know that that's a priority of a lot of our wealth partners. It's a priority of ours, and so that's another legislative priority that we anticipate rolling out later in the session. Do we have any questions? No questions yet. Well, if you are not watching this live, and if you're watching it later today or another day, do go ahead and ask the questions that might be on your mind from what you see, because we will get back to you and answer those via Facebook at a later date. So I would encourage you to think about that. As we think about civic engagement, we talked a little bit about how important the voices of citizens and communities and business leaders are for the clean energy future they want to see. Can you give a few just kind of more specific things that people can do to stay informed and engaged as they're thinking about this next 90 days?
Yeah, so it's easy for me to say, geez, everyone should be involved and contact your legislators, but often the challenge is, how do I do that? So there are fortunately tools in place. I will say sometimes they don't always work 100%, but they're the best tools we've got. The legislature, the main website for the state is kslegislature.org. And on there you can find a roster of all the legislators, their contact information, both their office contact information and the personal information that they've shared. If you go to the top right corner of the screen, I believe it says audio stream, but it's up at the top right corner. And when you click on that, there's a few options. If you go to State House Live, and I'm pulling this from memory, but if you go to State House Live, that will pull up a calendar of the committees that are meeting that day, and you can click on any of those and listen to the committee hearings. You can do that live. Fortunately, you can also go back and listen to it later. And I have to tell you, that's an improvement that's been made in the last 2 years, and it is a fantastic tool. 2 years ago, I would have to tell you, really there wasn't much available except to come to the Capitol. So that's a piece. Also on YouTube, you can watch the House and Senate on the floor. So if you want to see, you can listen to it audio as well, but if you want to see what's going on, you want to see who's standing and speaking, the YouTube channels for the House body and the Senate body are available. On Twitter, there is the hashtag KSLedge, which a lot of people follow and certainly has an ongoing commentary throughout each day. Some of it is extremely worthwhile and helpful, and others is a little bit more colorful. But it's a great way to follow what's happening in the Capitol as well. Of course, through CEP and signing up for action alerts, you will receive email updates from us when things are happening, when we need you to come to the Capitol or contact your legislators if there's a significant piece of action happening around a legislative piece. So those are some suggestions, and I'm happy to, if you have other questions, let me know and help you with more.
I am super excited that you can go back and listen to hearings later on. You know, I've stood up and testified in front of the Senate or in front of the House Utilities Committees, and it goes by so quickly that it's like, oh, I wonder how I sounded, or did I do okay? And so being able to go back and look at and maybe make corrections if need be as I'm thinking about what I've said. As you know, we were supposed to be doing this Facebook Live at 2 p.m. On Tuesdays, which is when we'll do them going forward. But we had a late breaking development, and so actually today in Senate Utilities, that office is 548 South, that committee room. You can go and listen if you are at the Capitol. You can step in and listen to the Kansas Corporation Commission present their rate study. The rate study was something that came out of the merger docket last year, that they were required to do a review of Kansas rates, and so the Kansas Corporation Commission will be presenting the findings today and tomorrow at 1:30 in 548 South. If you're not in Topeka for the Kansas People's Agenda today, then you can listen online. As Jessica mentioned, that will happen at 1:30. So Jessica, we've talked about some tips, we've given some practical advice. When you think about our legislative priorities, you know, what are some questions that our viewers should think about asking their legislator when they are meeting them for coffee or stopping by their office in the State House, or even sending an email or calling them? What are the questions they should be asking, or questions?
So one of the things that I think is so important is to meet people where they're at. So, as you go in and dialogue with the legislator, you want to know what their scope of knowledge is. And there's, a couple of questions that you can ask to get a better sense of, is this a high priority issue for them? Is it something they don't know a lot about? And so, as you think about talking about energy issues, I think it's important to, maybe the demand charges are important to you. And so, asking them, what can you tell me about your thoughts about the ability for homeowners to have solar on their house? Is that something that you would be in favor of? And then you can go into that around the pay structure and what should be allowed to be charged. When you think about, climate, which is an interesting topic and one where, again, there's just a broad spectrum of views on that. So, the way I would consider engaging with the legislators. So, we certainly know climate change is in the news. Tell me a little bit about, what do you think about that? Are there concerns in your area that you think are that climate change impacts, or, are you not concerned about it? Those lead to different dialogues, but hopefully create a space where you can communicate. What happens too often, and what I highly discourage is, and I know you get your chance in front of a public official and you want to be able to say what you think and make sure they know how you feel, and that is great. But if all you're doing is speaking at them, then they hear it and they move on. So try to open that dialogue for constructive conversation, as opposed to, I'm Jessica Lucas and here's what I think and you better believe this. And I'm watching you. There's too much defensiveness will really turn them off. And what you may miss in that is that you're closer than you think, and you want to make sure you create the space to have the dialogue, not just speaking at them, but how do you speak with them? And email communications are a little different, but certainly, you want to explain things respectfully, no foul language, no disrespect, because I've seen it many, many times. That door will close on you more quickly if you're not respectful. And these are elected officials who have been elected by a body of men and women in their districts. They deserve our respect, and we should try and find those opportunities to dialogue. And I think if there's anything we've learned from the election and message of our incoming governor and lieutenant governor, it's that, working together, finding common ground, that is the mantra under the Capitol today. And we as advocacy leaders should continue to act on that and not just speak at people.
It's so refreshing to really think about that having a governor and a lieutenant governor who really, we think, follow the CEP line of finding common ground and really looking for solutions. And so that's a good reminder for all of us, Jessica, to really act on that conviction, and certainly we will be doing that as organizations, and hope that you all will do that as well. Any questions from the audience? Okay, well, it sounds like we don't have a lot of people watching live today, or at least maybe we're answering all their questions. So I want to remind everybody, March 12th, Wealth Day. That is a day of advocacy and education. There are opportunities for sponsors to have booths. Last year, I think there were over 30 booths of organizations or businesses who wanted to talk about any of the wealth topics: water, energy, air, land, transportation, and health. So if you're interested in being a sponsor, you can get information at 2019 Wealth Day, and you can find that link on our website and in the Facebook Live. If you're an advocate and you just want to attend, we have a delicious local foods lunch that will be happening. So you'll want to RSVP for that. We're always looking out for sponsors. If these topics matter to you, even if you can't have a booth or if that doesn't work for you, if you'd like to provide some sort of a financial sponsorship so that we can keep the price low for advocates who are coming. Last year there were over 200 advocates, more than 55 legislators joined us for lunch. And we started something new last year that we're going to be continuing. We called those the Wealth Dialogues. And throughout the day, it was an opportunity for an advocate and a legislator to have a conversation about a particular wealth topic that was pertinent to what was happening at the Capitol at that time. We're just beginning to organize that event. There'll be more information both on our Facebook, on our website, as we go forward with that. Our next interview, next Tuesday at 2, January 22nd, will be with the League of Women Voters. We'll have Sil Kind and Teresa Briggs talking about voting and the importance of that, and talking a little bit about how their priorities as the League of Women Voters intersect with wealth topics. Jessica, any final thoughts as we end today's Facebook Live?
No, I think stay tuned. There's going to be a lot happening in the Capitol around this important topic, and again, your support and participation in the process will make us more successful at the Capitol. But no, every day you've got us advocating for moving forward with a clear plan and vision to integrate emerging technologies and make sure that Kansas continues to be a fantastic place to live, where we have clean water, clean air, and the lights turn on when we need them.
Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next Tuesday at 2.